So today we're looking at solving two-step equations, so it'll be a little bit of an extra step from yesterday. Today our content objective is students will be able to solve two-step equations with rational numbers and simplify their solutions. Students will be able to check the mathematical properties when used when solving equations, and this is important for real-life problems like helping you decide how much pet food to purchase. The steps that we're going to follow today are about the same as yesterday. Number 1, draw the line. Number 2, circle the variable. Number 3 is a little different. So I want you to write that step 3 is work farthest from the variable, then get closer. And then we'll be using inverse operations. Before we get started with the two-step equations, let's look at one step from yesterday. So here we have negative 1 5/6 equals negative 7/10 plus c. That's our given. So if we remember yesterday, we would draw the line, circle the variable, and we would get rid of whatever's with the variable by using the additive inverse or the multiplicative inverse, whatever the case may be. So in this case, we see that c is being added to negative 7/10. So we need to get rid of this negative 7/10. To get rid of the negative 7/10, we're going to add, because the opposite of a negative is a positive. And that's what will cancel this out, which is what we want to have happen. So that means over here I'm going to be adding 7/10. And that's the little process we need to work out. Now we have a mixed number, negative 1 5/6 plus 7/10. So I have my side work over here. Remember, whenever you have a mixed number, you should change it to an improper before working with it. So negative 1 5/6 is equivalent to negative 11/6. Big by the bottom, add the top. Now we see that these do not have common denominators, and so we make common denominators by thinking of the least common multiple. In this case, the least common multiple between 6 and 10 would be 30. I get to 30 from 6 by multiplying by 5. Whatever I do to the bottom, I match to the top, which gives me negative 55/30. Over on the 10, I would have to multiply by 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I match up top, and that gives me positive 21/30. Now that these have common denominators, we go ahead and subtract or add. It says negative 55 plus 21. Because these are different signs, that tells me I actually subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the bigger number. Since I have more negatives, that means I end up with negative 34/30, which reduces down to negative 17/15. All right, we can leave our answer in that form. I'm going to copy down that the variable was on the right-hand side, so that's where the c is. And then my answer was negative 17/15. But remember, that one was just a one-step equation. In order to get the variable by itself, all I had to do was add. So that would be the addition property of equality. Okay, so that's still just the one step, so let's look at a two-step. So number 1 right here is a two-step equation. I know this because I see two operations. I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to circle the variable. I see that the variable has something attached to it and something added to it. So the basic rule of thumb is work farthest away. Because this is attached to the variable, it means it's multiplying by the variable. That's the last thing I can get rid of. The first thing I have to get rid of is the thing farthest away from it on the same side, and that's the plus 2 1/4. So in order to get rid of a plus 2 1/4, I subtract 2 1/4 from both sides. When I cross that out, I see that that leaves me with negative 3/8 equals, and there's what I need to work out right here, 1 1/2 minus 2 1/4. Now I have my work shown over here. If you want to look at it further, you can always pause the video and take a look at how I did this. But we see that 1 1/2 minus 2 1/4 is going to give us negative 3/4. Now to get there, I subtracted from both sides, and so that would be the subtraction property of equality. But now I need another step to get x by itself. So I continue the line, I circle the variable, and I look to see what happened here. So I see they multiplied by a fraction, and so I would have to divide by the fraction, or in other words, multiply by its reciprocal. So to get rid of a negative 3/8, I would multiply by negative 8/3. And what that does is it makes it positive 1, or just x. So on this side, I would end up with just positive 1x, which is what I wanted, equals. And then whatever I do to one side, I match on the other. So I multiplied this side as well by negative 8/3. So all I did was take that fraction, flip it over, and multiply on both sides. A negative times a negative is a positive. I see I can also cross reduce here. I've got that work shown over here. And so I end up getting x equals positive 2. So there's our answer. All right, what I would like you to do is try this one on your own, number 2. Please circle that one and highlight so that I can see that you know what you're doing there. Let's go ahead and move on to another one. Let's look at one that has both fractions and decimals. Let's go over here and look at number 5. So number 5, I see the variable on the other side. So I'm going to draw the line, circle where I see the variable, because remember, that's the side that I now need to get rid of everything on. Farthest away from the m is going to be this 6.3. And so that's a positive 6.3, so I subtract 6.3 in order to get rid of it. Whatever I do to one side, I have to copy on the other, remembering to line up your decimals there. And so we get positive 3.5 is equal to, these cancel out, 1/5 m. I see that the variable still has numbers attached to it, so I'm going to circle it again, draw my line. Again, I see a fraction attached to a letter. And so to get rid of that fraction, I multiply by the reciprocal. Multiply both sides by 5/1. So I know over here that's all going to cancel out to 1. So I know that I'll have m, or 1m, left over there. And there's the work I just need to do. Now you can type this into a calculator or you can do this by hand, but 3.5 times 5 is going to result in 17.5. And we can leave our answer just like that. All right, so that's about all you'll see that's different than before. It's just two-step equations. The only thing that looks a little funny, you'll see 6 looks about the same, is over here at number 7. So this one looks a little funky. So let's go ahead and try this one. Draw your line, circle the variable, and we need to look farthest away. So if you say it out loud, it really does help figure out what to get rid of first. So if I were to say this out loud, I would say 6 plus h divided by 5. Now notice the last thing I said was divided by 5, or 6 plus h over 5. The last thing I said was 5. That's the farthest thing from that letter. It's on the whole other side of the fraction bar there. So that's the first thing I need to get rid of. To get rid of a divide by 5, the opposite of dividing is multiplying. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5, or 5/1. That will allow me to cross those out. And all I'll have left is 6 plus h equals, positive times a negative is a negative. That will give me 45. Now I circle the variable again, look farthest away. That's a positive 6, so to get rid of it, I subtract 6 from both sides. So now all I'm left with is the h that I wanted by itself. I wanted it isolated. And h equals negative, well, let's see, we're going to add those together because they're the same sign. And so I get negative 51. All right, now that one is also just like the one after it, so I would like you to circle number 8. So today you do have 2 to show me. Please show me number 8 and number 2 before you go on to My Open Math today. Good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.